And Joseph Jaffe is not famous today. I'm joined by Gino Wickman, founder of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and author of Shine. We're diving into the keys to true entrepreneurial freedom, the power of self-discovery, and the mindset shifts that separate the best from the rest. Getting what you want from your business doesn't have to come at a price. So, are you ready to shine? It's not TV. It's HBO. Let's get on with the show.
I'm William Shatner. I've done a lot of things in my career, but this takes the cake. This is so cool. You, Joseph, today, it's all about you. You won the internet. Congratulations. It's exciting. It makes me want to celebrate. Makes me want to get up out of this chair. Makes me want to sing. Makes me want to dance. Makes me want to shout. Kick my heels up. Throw my hands up. Toss my head back. No, really, people should be shouting your name in the street.
Come on now. Sing
that song.
Joseph,
Sing it out loud.
Joseph.
I want to celebrate. Put it up in lights. No one else deserves to be celebrated like you because you are the best.
Hey, listen up, y'all. I'm gonna shout out this young gun right here because he's trying to do his thing. Joseph Jaffe, not famous. Probably rightfully so. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm famous because, he's not famous. And he like, yo, let me call my famous friends and see if they'll shout me out and make me more famous, sir. Right? But so, Joseph Jaffe, man, it's cool. You got your late night talk show popping off. That's what's dope. Streaming, been doing your thing, man. You started this in March of the 2020, which is, tough throughout the years, but booking great guests, man. Jamal Mashboard, James Rollins, steady building it, man. Keep it popping off, man. Keep building your brand, man. Believe in yourself. Keep going hard, all right? That's what it's all about. One of these days, this little acronym of yours, not famous, is not going to be true. People going to see you in the mall and be like, I know who you is. Them going to be your cousins saying it all incorrect like that. But you know what I'm saying? You know what you going to do. What you going to do? They family. All right, bro.
This is my best kind of show notes. We didn't touch one of them, not even one of them. I'm not sure which one is Paul Rudd and which one is Lane Green.
Final card here is the ultimate outcome.
Today is Take Your Dog to Work Day.
Like Scooby-Doo.
Without further ado, his debut.
Sweet Caroline.
Everybody say hello to Sammy. Is it not good?
I'm just pausing so that you just are at the front of your screen.
I'm so enormously flattered.
Branding is not a bad blind date.
I'm gonna have to take a picture of this.
No, this is agape. This is love.
I really enjoyed this. You did do your homework. You asked great questions.
I'm flattered. Thank you. You just made my day.
Look at you. You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're
How
insane.
did I do that?
You're insane.
Well, I've got the big boss is on the show today, except he's not the boss. He's the boss, but he's not the boss. Actually, when a kid says, you're not the boss of me, the only boss is my spouse, although she'll tell you she's not. But anyway, Gino Wickman is on the show. Gino is the founder of EOS, and he's a man with a plan, and that plan is to make a little dent in the universe, and we are going to go deep down a rabbit hole. Let's just hope the hole goes deep, otherwise we're going to hit our heads. It's going to be a little bit of fun today. He called me a character, and that is awesome because we want to be known for something. We don't want to be vanilla. And I'll never forget, had a guest on the show, and he said the thing about vanilla, it's the most popular flavor, but no one will drive across town for it. So who wants to be vanilla? I don't want to be vanilla. I want to be, chocolate chip sprinkles or something like that. So Gino is coming on the show. As I do at the beginning is I read my why statement. As a teacher, facilitator, and coach, I help high aspiring entrepreneurs, owners, and their leadership teams get unstuck, return to growth, and become forever change. What do I mean? Well, the sticky part of it is the show. I started the show in March 2020 when people were stuck at home or just stuck in general. And of course, if you're stuck, the only thing to do is to get unstuck. Growth, well, growth is EOS and my journey as an implementer within EOS. And Gino's watching in the green room at the back. He has no demands. He's a very easy guest. He just said that he needs orange M&Ms. That was the only prerequisite from his team. I wanted him to see this because I normally show this, and then I've changed my little mini site or micro site on EOS. This is what it was, and this is how it is right now. And you can actually see there's a change. You can see it. I love it. I realize that I am becoming my true self, something that the book Shine really talks about. From get a grip on your business with EOS and me looking, and let me tell you, I was sucking in my gut because that shirt was barely fitting me, to this one, which for me feels more me. I gotta be me. I gotta let my freak flag fly. Don't say that 3 times fast. And then finally, Forever Change. Forever Changed is my 6th book, How a Global Pandemic Changed My Direction, My Purpose, and My Life, through a very simple formula. And I love this because it's so consistent with my journey now as a coach. It's so consistent with Shine. The formula to become Forever Changed is Amor, which is love what you do, happiness, Veritas, be true to yourself, to thine own self be true, and finally Vigor, which is stamina, endurance, energy, the ability to stay the course, resilience, love what you do, be true to yourself, and stay the course. And so this really means a lot to me because I feel so validated on so many levels. Well, now it's time for our seated soliloquy, and the soliloquy today is called Take the Win. Now, one of the things that Gino writes about, Gino and Rob in Shine, is this I used to say entrepreneurs, we're masochists. We love pain. We love inflicting pain on ourselves. We're weird. There's something about us that drives us being driven. But the thing about it is we're never happy. We're never satisfied. This concept of the mountain, what is the mountain? You get to the top of the mountain and you want to go higher. You see the next summit. And there's this concept that I call take the win. In fact, Gino will probably explain it better. It's something about dopamine receptors, D2 and D4. And he writes, it's harder for driven people to feel rewarded and consequently either successful or satisfied. I had this moment in my life last week when my youngest son got into Tulane, and it's been a battle. It's been a challenge. I don't normally talk about my family on the show, and he got in, and immediately he was like, well, I should have applied there and I should have applied here, and what's the ranking? And I said to him, take the win. Take the win. Celebrate the win. Instead of worrying about what you could have done or should have done or might have done, or the grass on the other side being green on the other side, take the win. That's what we got to do in life as entrepreneurs, as leaders. Sometimes we've got to be able to just stop and pause and breathe and introspect and reflect and say, and pat ourselves on the back and give us the grace to celebrate the win. We're so good, and by good I mean bad, at being able to not even commiserate, but be so hard on ourselves. We're always being told to give ourselves grace when it comes to the shortcomings and the mistakes, and and the ability for us to keep on striving and doing better and moving forward. But sometimes we just need to be able to celebrate how far we've come and take the win. And that is the seated soliloquy today. And now it's time for me to move from monologue to dialogue by welcoming my very special guest, Gino Wickman. For more than 3 decades, Gino has been helping entrepreneurs get what they want from their businesses and lives. Gino's authored 8 books, so you're beating me by 2, which have sold over 3 million copies. You're beating me by about 2.95 million. And EOS is now the operating system of choice for over 250,000 companies. And I'm proud to say 10 of them are my clients. Most importantly, Gino is a student and teacher of entrepreneurship with a passion for helping you unleash your greatness within. Today, you're going to discover how to free your true self to experience greater peace and fulfillment. you're going to tap into greater power, creativity, and energy, and you'll learn how to make an ever increasing impact on the people on your life. Let's bring him on. Gino, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joseph. And wow, that was an opening. I am really looking forward to this, and I hope we impact a few lives today.
Yeah, I can even give you this if you'd like. I'll just give you the first, the air horn, just to kind of. I mean, we should celebrate. We should celebrate each other all the time.
So good, so good.
So now you've watched the show a little bit, so there are no surprises. I don't know how I'm going to surprise you, but I'm going to try with very bad AI and Photoshop skills, because one of the things I like to do at the beginning, and by the way, we've got anyone who's watching live on LinkedIn. Here's Haley, who said, ever increasing impact. Love that. So from time to time, we'll have some comments coming on the show. It's a little segment I call Fun Facts. And one of the reasons I started this, Gino, was, we're so good at our resume virtues, but David Brooks talks about eulogy virtues. Nobody at our graveside talks about our EBITDA or our ROI, but they do talk about how the impact we had on others. So we sent our investigators into the field to dig up as much dirt as we could find on you. And are you nervous yet? Are you
Not in the
nervous yet?
least. Not in the least.
That's the problem. That's the problem. Well, the first little fun fact we found about you is that apparently you can walk on your hands. So now I guess when I meet you, you're going to be running away from me the next time we gather at our quarterly collaborative exchanges. I'm going to ask you to walk in your hands. Tell me about the skill, the superpower.
I learned it in my teens, and I had a group of friends, and there were a few of us that could, and we would just do everything you could do walking on your hands, including your visual there, walking up and down stairs. We would see who could walk the fastest, and we'd time it, who could go up the most stairs, down the most stairs. So it's just something I learned that I fell in love with, and I check myself every year. Now, as I say that, I'm due to try again, because I do it a lot less now, but I want to be able to do it at every age until I can't anymore. So every year I give it a shot, and I'm able to go, still go a good 20 feet. So I think it still counts, but it's just something that I fell in love with and had a lot of fun with.
I just realized you've answered the, that dinner time party question, which is, would you rather have hands for feet or feet for hands? It's quite clear your answer. All right. So what else did we learn about you? Well, we learned, and of course, by the way, clearly you are in fantastic shape. You've been in more fist fights than you can count. We actually have an image of your last fist fight. So, there you are, apparently in the movie Fight Club. Who knew?
That's exactly what I look like with my shirt off. That's perfect.
That's exactly, I mean, it was one or the other, and I had to make you this one. You've been in fist fights. When's the last fist fight that you were in?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it'll be a good part of this conversation we're going to have in this topic. So my fist fighting ran from age 16 to 22, I think would be the age. And I was a sad kid turned angry at 15 when I built my facade, and never started a single one of those fights. And I'm not saying I finished them all, but my radar was always looking for one. And if anyone ever in any way threatened me or one of my friends, or I had to protect them or myself, there was a fight to be had, because I was an angry son of a gun, and I was releasing all of my sadness and anger in those years.
Well, we're gonna talk a little bit later, I'm sure, about Maya, about the veil, and all these pictures and layers that we put up, or at least that we have to break through to really find and connect with our true self. The last little bit of interesting factoids about you, and I don't know if this is maybe an interesting skill, but you laugh and you cry every single day. You're probably crying on the inside, thinking, "Why did I come on his show?" right now. And this is AI's version of you laughing and crying at the same time. I mean, it's interesting to me. You seriously laugh and cry. I mean, the laughing part is easy. How do you cry every day, and what kind of crying? How does one do that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You asked me that question. What do people not know about me? And the reason it came to me, that I laugh and cry every day is it's about a year or two ago, we were out with some friends, my wife and I, with two other couples. There were 6 of us, and we're having dinner. We're in a restaurant, and I can't remember how it came up, but I said, I laugh and I cry every day, and everybody just went silent. Everybody was so uncomfortable. So for some reason, I just get a kick out of saying it because it's true. It's incredibly powerful, and it's amazing how uncomfortable people are, because it's not like I'm crying from sadness. It's not like I'm crying from happy. It's always something different. But when I look back, now this only goes back 5 years after my awakening, but I realized that I laugh and cry every day. And so this morning, as I was doing my meditation and a little bit of reading, something pinged me and it made me cry. And again, it's not this all out cry where the tears are flying every time. Sometimes it's just getting very emotional. It might be just a song that I'm listening to that pings me. Lots of songs ping me. And so it just brings up emotion that just feels so damn good. And then you're right. Laughing, you say, is easy, but if you look at 8.5 billion people on the planet, I'm not so sure laughing is easy for most of them. And so I think it's just as hard for some people to laugh. And so I just feel like we need to laugh every day, cry every day. I do it. Something I became aware of, and it's very therapeutic.
Yeah, self-deprecation is definitely part of I don't know that it's one of my core values, but it's definitely a part of my personality. I mean, with this face for radio, so, shake what your mama gave you. It's an interesting insight, by the way, that you would think that laughter came easy to people, but it doesn't necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, which you write about, is that when people cry, often they put their hands to their face, they shield themselves. There's shame and guilt, and there shouldn't be. It's actually very. I mean, we talk about open and honest, but being vulnerable that's part of what vulnerability-based trust. At the end of the day, is that it's not going to be used.
It's interesting you key in on that, putting their hands over their face. It gives me pain whenever I see somebody cry and cover their face. That shame. And I mean, so to go to the root of why that is such an opportunity. But I just, it's like I feel it in my chest whenever I see someone covering their face when they're crying.
So we're going to go down a little journey, and your journey. I mean, you wrote Shine. I read the entire book. I mean, it's a easy read, not meaning easy as in it's easy as in it flows. It's the kind of the last business book I read was probably 35 years ago. I'm not going to lie. I'd like to say with all the authors that have been on the show that I've read all their books. I haven't read one of them, but this one I read. And you can test me. You can say page 65. I'm telling you, the first word was the. So don't check me on that one. But your journey, Gino, you're open, you're honest, you're vulnerable, and you talk about this essentially a hole or an unfulfilled moment where you had an awakening. And I wouldn't mind you just setting the scene by talking about it, because you're the man that has everything, right? You're a successful entrepreneur. You've built this beautiful company, and yet, we always say, we'll help you get what you want for your business. And what when that, what happens when you get there and you realize this isn't what I wanted anymore. This isn't who I am.
Yeah. Well, I liked your mountain analogy at the beginning. In your opening, I use that analogy a lot. And, we driven entrepreneurs, that's what we're doing our whole life, is we're climbing the mountain, trying to reach some destination that we believe exists. And so same for me, all of the content I've created I am the content. I'm teaching what I needed the most as an entrepreneur at every level. And all of that content addresses each level in that entrepreneurial climb. Well, shoot forward to when you get to the top of the mountain, and I'll put that in kind of quotes. I've seen it more times than I can count where the entrepreneur gets to the top of the mountain. They think all of a sudden by achieving this goal, they're going to feel this sensation and all is going to be right in the world. And in almost every case, it's more of this, is this all there is? There's like this emptiness, this lack of fulfillment, and I can't remember the word you used at the beginning, accept the win, or however you said that.
Yeah,
we just
take
don't
the
accept.
win.
Yeah, we don't accept that win. We don't celebrate it. We're on to the next thing. And so there's an emptiness. And so that's what happened for me. And so for me, I sold EOS worldwide now almost 7 years ago. It was about a year or two into selling. I sold really well. I knew exactly what I was going to do afterwards. The day after closing, I was able to step away from the company. So I had no involvement in the business. It was just like the perfect situation. And so as I'm off pursuing other passions, again, about a year or two in, business was sold, had more money than I'll ever need, great family, friends. And so I was sitting there celebrating my life, or just kind of reflecting on, like everything's perfect. And it was the moment that I had that thought that the universe hit me upside the head with a 2x4. And I can only describe it as an awakening, because it was exactly that, where there was just like this emptiness and something forced me to go inside. And there was so much pain that came up. And so there's a great quote that Dr. Doug Brackman shares, and he talks about, he works with Navy SEALs. He works with a lot of driven people, entrepreneurs, athletes. And what he talks about is the Navy SEAL does not experience their trauma on the battlefield. They experience their trauma when they are home and they are safe. And so when we are safe is when the trauma comes up. And that's exactly what happened for me. And so this trauma I'm describing, what came up was me then going very deep inside. I've always kind of focused on my outer world. This time I went into my inner world, and I realized the pain and the trauma from my childhood, and how at 15 years old, when alcohol touched my lips for the first time, thank God it's never been a problem, but what it did is it numbed me. And so I was able to numb all the pain and create a suit of armor, just this facade. So I created this tough guy, ass-kicking, hard-working facade that then served me very well for 35 years. And that awakening at 52 years old was my soul just screaming that it is time to shed all of this shit and be free. And so, talking about the fighting, now you can tie those two things together, because as this perfect person stuffing down all this pain and this tough guy image that I created, both sad and angry, that formula is a Molotov cocktail for, somebody looking for a fight. And that's what I did for the next 7 years.
So I guess this became you. This was when you took you had the red pill or blue pill choice, and you decided to move away from the comfort and the safety to understand what life was really like in the matrix, if you will. Let's talk about masks. I mean, why do people wear these masks? Why do they put up this veil? Why are there so many layers between who they should be and who ultimately they perceive the world wants them to be?
Yeah, well, let me back up one step and then come right back to the answer to your question, because I love your image here. So Matrix is one of my top 5 movies. And now I know why with this, because it so perfectly describes what we're talking about. And I actually considered, in the many cover options for this book, Shine, was the 2 hands, one with the red pill, one with the blue pill, because by reading this book, you are literally going to do this. And do you want to really see how far this rabbit hole goes? And so that's what I decided at 52, when the universal sledgehammer hit me, or the 2x4, and woke me up. That's when I took the red pill, and I decided to go down the rabbit hole and find out where all this pain was coming from. And again, shed the suit of armor, shed the facade, shed the mire, shed the layers. There's so many analogies and terms for this. And so There's the matrix. The matrix is the day you finally see that your ego has you trapped in a cocoon. Your true self and your soul is trapped in there. The cocoon that is the ego is the matrix. And it's making up a whole bunch of shit that's making you think you're safe, but you're not safe. And there's a whole bunch of stuff going inside. And so now let's jump to your question, why the mask? Again, I can speak from experience on this, and then we can, go as deep as you want. But for me, it was age 15. Like I said, I learned how to put on the mask. I learned how to stuff all that pain down. I learned how to, in quotes, forget all that happened to me. You never forget it. Your body never lets you forget it until you release that energy. And so I put on the mask, the suit, the protective layers. Again, and my mask, the one I chose, was this guy who fought, worked, ass-kicking, tough guy. And that mask served me really well in the outer world. Like I said, for 35 years, as I built my empire and created this perfectionist image that I thought, served me well. And at some point, your soul just starts knocking and pings you. And I always talk about it pierces the shield. And so it either lets a little light in or a little light out. So this book does exactly that. It will ping your soul. And if we can just pierce that shield, let a little light in, a little light out, that is when your awakening begins and the mask comes off and the real you comes out, which is so much better than the facade.
We're gonna talk about addiction in a moment, but one of the things that really struck me was this idea of feeling broken and dealing with this trauma and this pain. And you talk about a few people in the book about the pain and the trauma that they went through. I can relate in terms of living out of a suitcase and when I used to travel to and keynoted in over 50 countries. And guess what? I wasn't there for my kids growing up. I remember a story. I wrote about this in Forever Change. There was a movie with Christopher Walken with a magical remote control I think it was called Click, with Adam Sandler. And he gets given this remote control, and suddenly his wife is fighting with him, and he pauses it, and she stops, and then he fast forwards it, and the fight is over. And eventually it starts to learn all of his behaviors and become predictive. And one day these adults come up and hug him, and they're carrying children. He's like, "Who are you?" And they're like, "Dad, don't you recognize me? I'm your child." I started crying so much on that flight back that I was inconsolable. So do you have to be broken to be an entrepreneur, Gino? And, whether it's you, whether it's, the other people you mentioned, does this mean now that we're fixed, or are we still works in progress?
Yeah. So it's hard to answer that one with a short answer, and I'm going to do my best.
You can take as long as you want.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'll create a little context that will back us into the answer to your question, because the context I want to share is the first half of this book. What we teach you is what we call 3 discoveries to free your true self. And this book is for driven entrepreneurs. Certainly any driven person will relate to all of this, but our focus is driven entrepreneurs, because that's been my life for 30 years, is helping entrepreneurs. So the 3 discoveries, very, very high level. Discovery number 1 is I am driven. Discovery number 2 is all decisions are made out of love or fear. Discovery number 3 is that it is possible to be driven and have peace. And so now if we take those, again, staying high level, in discovery number 1, it's about first and foremost understanding you're driven and all that it means to be driven, which is what you're starting to get at. But I want to stay in this context before we directly answer your question. In discovering you're driven, it's about learning the blessing and the curse of being driven, the good and the bad, the pros and the cons. Because we driven people, we tend to thump our chest for all the good stuff, but we've got to start to acknowledge the bad stuff. And so the good stuff is that we have superhuman strength. We create more things than most. We accomplish more than most. But the downside is we leave a black trail behind us. We do a lot of damage to ourselves, mentally, physically, and emotionally, and to our loved ones. And so to become aware of this, as well as addictions, and we can come back to addictions as well, because driven entrepreneurs certainly suffer from addictions more than most. And certainly there's a lot of trauma with driven entrepreneurs, but still creating context here. In the second discovery, it's about understanding that all decisions stem from love or fear. And it's about becoming aware of your love-based and fear-based decisions. When you start to understand and see your fear-based decisions, it's about understanding and going to the roots of where that comes from. And what you will find is it's something from the past that you're trying to protect. And then the third discovery is the aha, that once you shed whatever those roots are, you reach this level of vibration and energy and happiness and fulfillment that your drive actually increases and your peace and your fulfillment increases. And so you realize that it is possible to be driven and have peace, where most of us driven entrepreneurs, we fear that if we find peace, it's going to zap us of our secret formula, our drive. And so to answer your question, yes, I think most driven entrepreneurs have trauma, pain, and it is what drives them. I don't believe that's the case for most. I think it's less now have trauma and pain. It's still the majority for what that's worth. But my point in all of this is, I don't know that it's a characteristic that you've had a bunch of trauma, therefore you're going to be an entrepreneur. I believe it's more about discovery number one, discovering you're a driven person and how that got you in trouble in your early years. Because driven entrepreneurs, they typically have ADHD, they go hard, they take huge risks. And so we get ourselves in a lot of trouble. We run across the street without looking both ways more than most. And so we're just less cautious. And so, I relish the days that, I would walk out the front door at age 6, 7, 8, and 9 and not come home until the end of the day. And my parents had no idea where I was. That's how it was done in the 70s. So there was a lot of freedom and a lot of ways to get myself in trouble. And so I think we tend to find these situations. But in addition to that, there are genetics that driven people have that we need an adrenaline rush. We need to take that risk. We need to do more risky things to get that endorphin hit, that adrenaline hit that we so desperately seek. So there's the long answer I tried to share with you as fast as I could.
It made me think we were actually talking about Dave Rendell earlier, the giant freak in pink. And when he was last on my show, he spoke about wabi-sabi and kintsugi. And I actually, as you were talking now, I realized that is actually what becomes of us as entrepreneurs is we break, we put the pieces together, but hopefully proudly, we wear the cracks and we can see where the cracks are as opposed to hiding them and concealing them.
Exactly. And then one last little point. So now all of a sudden, if that made any sense, because that was a half a book, in 4 minutes right there. So if that makes any sense, the beauty is understanding exactly that. The cracks just go to the roots of these fear-based things going on inside of you. And I call them decisions, but it also includes emotions, thoughts, feelings. But when something is stirring inside of you that is fear-based or not quite right, your body is screaming at you to go there and figure out what that is, process that thing, process that energetic block, free that energetic block, and raise to another level of vibration. And that's all in the process of discovery number 2 in terms of how to do that. But the point is, now you solve the crack, all of a sudden you're vibrating higher, you're a little freer. Now all of a sudden your drive actually increases, but you're doing that with a little more peace. You're doing a lot less damage with your drive because we're steamrolling everything in a non-peaceful, traumatic state of drive when it is possible to do that in a very peaceful way. And I repeat, it will actually increase your drive. I have more drive than ever at 57 years old, along with a hell of a lot more peace.
So please look out for Gino Wickman's new book, Solve the Crack, available wherever books Let's make sure this does not get. All right. So the question I asked you before is now when you look at this. Uh, and look, Gino, I told you we're going to have a lot of fun today. So when we look at you now, and some people might see you as this, Brad Pitt like, Adonis type of human. But the reality is you're not that. You're actually just, as you would call it, a big, sensitive, cushy love ball. And this is what you look like. That's that's the big sensitive. I worked on this one for a long time. I just couldn't get AI to try and figure out what Gino looks like as a big, sensitive, cushy love ball.
You're missing the goatee, but this is why I called you a character earlier.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just could not, I could not get the metaphorical love ball to come together. But so Gino, now at where you are you? And I asked the question very deliberately: are you fixed? Are you healed? Do you make 100% of your decisions based on love versus fear? Where are you in terms of this journey, or work in progress?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So, here's the way I would describe it. So I have no idea where I am on this journey. I am certainly not fixed. I believe the whole thing's a journey. And I just decided I'm going to start sharing my journey with the world so we can just all go on this journey together. So, let's pretend there's this scale of 0 to 100%. And 100% is where you're fixed. You're fully enlightened. You've shed all of your shit. In other words, you are just completely free. Your true self, your soul is shining bright, completely free. And so let's pretend that's 100%. 0. So I don't know where I am on that spectrum. I don't believe that I'm anywhere near 100. I believe I'm still on the journey. I'm not fixed. My greatest fear, however, is that I'm only like 1 or 2%. Like every time I shed something, every time I get a little freer, every time I feel a little more peace, there's something new. A new door opens, and it's this beautiful, wonderful journey. And it's also this kind of ebbing and flowing, and it's this expanding and it's this contracting. But when you expand and contract, the expansions get bigger and the retractions get smaller. But my point is, I fear that I'm only like at 1 or 2%. It's substantially better than what it was. And I'm going to read a handful of words to you as a testament to this. So this is all the last 5 years. Somebody was interviewing me for something, and they asked my wife, daughter, and son, how am I different in the last 5 years? And so their answer was that I am more calm, I'm more patient, I'm more loving, open, freer, happier, more present. I receive love. I'm more inspiring. I'm less judgmental. And so the point is there's been incredible progress in the last 5 years. So I don't know if I'm 1%, 50%, 99%. Again, I fear I'm closer to 1% than 99, but no, I'm not fixed. There's always lessons to learn. And that's the beauty. I think that's what we are all here to do, is ascend and learn and grow. And the more you grow, the more you ascend, the more growth and ascension opportunities present themselves. I believe you have to see the dark to see the light. I feel you have to experience pain to experience pleasure. And so it's just this wonderful pendulum in life that I think just keeps getting better and better and better.
I love that answer, and also the honesty. I mean, you even say, I don't know whether I'm at 1 or 100. If you look at the true self model, and in a way, it is this infinity sign, but it's also just constantly fluid and in motion. The difference between impact and peace. So I actually came up with my words, and my words were grow and slow. And I actually thought there was an interesting connection to humility and confidence. Grow, confidence, and slow as in humility. So this was mine. I also took the test, and for those of you watching, read the book. The book will, I don't make promises it will change your life. It will allow you to look at your life and be able to make changes. But one of the things, I took the test and I came out at about 69 in terms of love and fear, and that was my continuum: grow, and slow. So that was me, and I felt comfortable at where I was.
Yeah, and speaking of that assessment, since you mentioned it, it is free and available online at our website, the10disciplines.com. It's called the True Self-Assessment. Fill it out. You're going to get a result, just as Joseph said. And with that, you're going to find out how free your true self really is, and then start the journey from there.
So, and I loved being able to do it. I felt very comfortable doing it, and it you know, it made me think. And then I went through the disciplines, and I started to, like, a lot of connections started to happen. I also love this concept about being present. And I actually thought, when you think of the past, the present, and the future, Gino, the past represents all our blocked energy. The future is our ego and our fears, and the present represents love. And so that's how I that's my Colby 3385. That's my 5 implementer, trying to make sense of it all and figure out what the model is. And that was the message to me, which is be present, live in the present, enjoy the presence, have presence in order to feel true love.
Yeah, and if I can grab that, you know, just do a quick dive into discovery number 2. All decisions are made out of love or fear, because that's the starting point to doing this work we're talking about, is awareness, consciousness. Presence is the word you're using. And so very quickly, this point I made about, you know, our true selves are trapped in there behind this cocoon that is our ego, which just is a protective structure that our ego created to never feel pain again. Well, when you understand that, we take you 4 levels down to the root of how to shift to more love-based decisions from fear-based decisions. So once you understand your true self is in there, the next level is to understand you are pure energy. It's all energy. And some of us vibrate very high, some vibrate very low. And when we're vibrating low, we have blocks that are causing fear-based decisions. Then we go down another level to understand you can remove blocks. We give 30 ways to remove energetic blocks. And then we go down to the final level, the 4th level, and that is the awareness level, the presence level, that level where we are conscious. If you just start to pay attention right here and now to what your body is telling you, and also be present and pay attention when you make decisions, have thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Are they fear-based? Are they love-based? And when it's fear-based, through this awareness, this presence, this consciousness, you just simply then take the elevator up those 4 levels and go to the root of what that block is, shed that block, then vibrate even higher, then chip away at the marble and start to free yourself from that suit of armor, and yourself becomes more free. And even a 10% shift from fear-based decisions to love-based decisions, it's like a tectonic shift in your life and your body. I mean, it's truly like a Richter scale. You will have a noticeable impact on your life just shifting from 10% more, shifting to 10% more love-based decisions from fear-based. But it all starts with presence, awareness, consciousness.
So I was fascinated at this concept of emotional contagion, something I've heard on with previous guests, this idea of harmonic resonance. You know, the example always given that there's a reason why when you see all babies, newborn babies, when one cries, they all cry. There is this interconnectedness, and I'm fascinated by this idea of this radiance, this shining. This happens that we start to emit this frequency where love is actually measured at 500. Enlightenment is right at the top. Fear is towards the bottom. This is fascinating. Do we have a genometer or a wickometer? How do we measure this? I want to go deep.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. You know, and before we started this podcast, I said, you know your audience better than I do. You decide how deep we're going to go. So we're getting into some really heavy stuff here, which, you know, I want to go all the way down the rabbit hole. So that's why I'm letting you be the judge here of how deep we're going to go. So there is a scale, and it's not my scale. It's Dr. David Hawkins' scale from his book, Letting Go. He's written multiple books on this, but it's very powerful. It's very profound. And what he shares is a scale that runs from 0 to 1,000. So 0 at the lowest level, 1,000 at the highest level. And we are all vibrating somewhere on that scale. And there's a direct emotion tied to the scale. And so I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up to give you some of the words that Dr. Hawkins uses to describe. So at the lowest level, vibrating at like 30 is shame. And then from there, we work our way up. Guilt, fear, anger, courage, acceptance, love, peace, and then enlightenment. And so enlightenment is 700 to 1,000. Obviously, shame is the lowest. And so we people walking the earth, we are all vibrating somewhere in there, and we will attract where we're vibrating. And so people that vibrate at 150, which is typically right around anger, they attract other angry people, and so on and so forth. And so the point here is there's the scale to answer your question. The point is, when you shed the blocks that are holding you back and making you vibrate lower, you will literally vibrate higher. The belief is that worldwide we vibrate just under 200, and that number keeps rising every decade. And so David Hawkins believes when we cross 200, that's when a real awakening will happen on the planet. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But there's the scale, and that's the power of understanding the scale. And what we are talking about here is energy and vibration. And so, here's the other heavy thing. If you haven't learned this yet, but we are all pure energy. It's scientific. You can't debate it any longer. Google it. And so when you understand that we are energetic beings, we're pure energy and we vibrate, that is an aha moment, because then you can start to look at where are you vibrating? How's your energy? Are there blocks? And if you have blocks, start shedding those blocks, i.e. layers. We call it shed and shine, or shed your shit. And again, this book shows you exactly how to do that.
I want to ask you one question that's slightly connected back to EOS, which is, and the backdrop, I had Dr. Mario Martinez on my show, and he wrote this book that's still in my mind, all about, it's called The Mind Body Code. And we got to talk about that another time. And he talks about inflammatories and anti-inflammatories. He talks about gratitude, curiosity, generosity, and admiration as four core values. And I actually asked him if companies have core values that are essentially anti-inflammatory as well, that can actually that are conducive to longevity. And I wonder if we can, what the connection is to these vibrations and core values from an EOS standpoint in terms of thinking of companies, cultures, and people inside.
Yeah, no, there's an absolute direct correlation, but I'm not going to be able to make the connection quickly, but I'm going to start with the quick version, because we have to go back to this basic premise that all beings walking the earth are vibrating at some level. And let's pretend you have somebody who's vibrating at 150, going and interviewing for a company that vibrates at 250. They're never going to get hired. And let's pretend that company vibrating at 250 interviews somebody vibrating at 400. They're never going to get hired. Quite frankly, the 400 is going to run for the hills. So you use the term core values. I would suggest you use the word culture. And so every culture vibrates from 0 to 1,000. And whatever that is, because we've seen some evil, mean, dark cultures, and we've seen some bright, shiny cultures. I did a podcast episode on our podcast, Shed and Shine. I called it The Company That Shines. And I just basically described what the company looks like that vibrates at 700. Okay. And so I shared it in vivid color. The point there is, I would say culture. Culture is the word. And so your culture vibrates at a certain level. Your culture is defined by your core values. So core values are vital. When we tap into the founding entrepreneur and those leaders and get into their soul in terms of what their 3 to 7 core values are, and they start to hire, fire, review, reward, recognize everybody around those core values, that's where they all align with the core values, vibrate at the same level. But I would call it culture, because every culture is somewhere on that spectrum. And I take great pride in having worked with companies, they start out at 150 and we get them to 350. I don't think I've ever gotten a company to enlightenment. I don't even know that that's possible, but I'm on a mission to, see it happen at some point in time. hopefully that answers your question. I love that question. I've never been asked that, and I believe it's 100% true. And by the way, I'm going to be a little selfish, toot my own horn a little bit. It's not something I normally do, but EOS Worldwide, the company I started, built, and sold, that company vibrates pretty high, or at least, it did during my 10-year reign, and I believe it still does. But when you sell, certain things change, the culture changes a little bit, but that company vibrated very, very high, and that company was built on love. There was no secret. It was built on love. I said the word love 25,000 times during my 10-year reign.
Well, I'm about to toot your horn as well, so I'll give you the air horn. That's about as far as I can go without HR. Not that I have an HR department, but you know what I mean. I want to go back to Rob for a second. I'm going to share a clip that talks about a different kind of addiction, and then we'll discuss it in context of work.
Awesome.
Are you in control?
Right.
You think you are, but you really aren't. None of us are. We're not in control of anything. So let go. Okay? Because the tighter you hold on, the harder it is. We write about a friend of ours named Justin Breen, who works with entrepreneurs, and made a comment to us that he had yet to meet an entrepreneur who hasn't experienced at least one of the following: bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy, heightened levels of anxiety, depression, traumatic experiences as a child or young adult. And Gino and I added a fifth one: addiction. Okay, so
bingo. Oh, sorry, I just hit bingo on my card. That was, what do I win, Rob? What do I win?
You're not the only one who reacts that way, by the way.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
That's so good.
So the context of addiction, when we think of whether it is porn, whether it is gambling, whether it is substances, it just resonates differently when you think of work as an addiction, because we say, oh, we're addicted to, but addiction, we understand what addiction is in context of some of those categories. And somehow when we think about work, we almost dismiss it or don't realize that it is as harmful. So how do we break that work addiction? Do we need essentially an intervention, and what does that look like?
Yeah, and let me start with the textbook definition, okay, of addiction. So addiction, well, I should say this is our textbook definition. Addiction is doing something that is not good for you or hurts you, that numbs or distracts you from your pain, okay? And so you gave great examples. So porn, drugs, alcohol, gambling, food, watching TV. And so it's anything that we're numbing ourselves. And so again, going back to the pain and presence, awareness, consciousness, is starting to become aware when you're numbing yourself. And so yes, one of the greatest ways a driven entrepreneur numbs their pain is with work, because for us, work is soothing. It's crazy. Building a $10 million company is soothing for us. Most people would, jump off a bridge. It would be so stressful. For us, it's soothing. So we get lost in our businesses. And so it's a form of addiction. And so you just have to check yourself, become aware, is this an addictive behavior? Am I numbing myself? And you can start by just simply looking at your other addictions and look there. And if you find yourself, it's soothing and distracting, start to look at, are you doing this in your business? And the idea in the business is to ultimately figure out what is your perfect work capacity, your perfect output as an entrepreneur, and stay within that work capacity, and then do other things in your life that balance you, fulfill you, spend time with family, friends, hobbies, things like this, yourself. And so just pay attention to when work is a numbing agent and a distraction agent for your pain. And here's the other beauty. When you shed the pain, when you shed the layers, the addictions go away. You will drink less. You will work less by choice, It's some entrepreneurs need to work 80 hours a week. I get it, but it's so rare. And it's okay to work 50 hours a week as an entrepreneur, and it's possible to build an empire on 40, 50 hours a week. You just got to figure out your work capacity and just make sure you're not exceeding your capacity due to addictions and numbing.
We won't go through all 10 of the disciplines, because people that are watching, this is an opportunity for you to go and buy the book and experience it. And what's really great about this book, Gino, and I'm not just saying it, I mean, having read the only book that I've read maybe in the last 25 years, like I have to admit it now, is that there are constant opportunities to write down, to journal. This one of the disciplines that talks about keep everything in one place. For me, I'm so scatterbrained as well, is that you can do almost real-time journaling. And the book allows you to write things down. And what I also love is the fact that it's constantly saying to you, as to what would they say about you? And I was like, I never thought about it that way. I guess all I have to do is ask them, gee, I hope I'm okay with what their answers are. And so one of them was this idea of taking time off. Mm-hmm. And that connected back to 10-year thinking. This caused me to change my 10-year plan. And before, it was to have a Wikipedia page created for me. Mm-hmm. And maybe there was ego talking, but for me, this was my constant battle. You can see all the dots are connected here, Gino. Am I good enough? Constantly trying to prove myself to the world, to be validated. Hey, do you know how many books I've written? Do you know how many and it's exhausting to constantly try and prove oneself to everyone else, when the only person I really need to prove it to is myself. So screw the Wikipedia page. My 10-year target now is to live the EOS life, which is to do what I love, working with people I love, making a substantial difference, being compensated appropriately. All 4 of those are on track. 5th one is the one that I've got to really, really work on, which is to have time to pursue other passions. And that comes down to be still. It comes down to everything. It literally connected the dots. So the EOS life, it's a 10-year target for me, and to legitimately live it, Gino. So thank you for inspiring me there.
Great. My pleasure, brother. That's the goal, is that every one of our clients are living their EOS life.
Now, I'll tell you, in order to get there, it was weird which disciplines resonated with me. This one really resonated with me, say no often. And it actually promoted, you talk about it should be as simple as eating a worm. What a brilliant way to actually help people understand the difference between the hell yeahs and the hell no's. So I'm going to ask you a quick question as we wind down. Why did you say yes to coming on this show, Gino? As busy as you are, as someone who clearly doesn't, is so deliberate and intentional with their time.
Yeah, well, let me back up one step, because I want to create a little context on the 10 disciplines that you just ran through, just so that the audience is kind of connecting the dots, and then I'll come right back to answering your question. And I don't mind sharing what the 10 are, but I want to create a context. And the context is, we talked about the first half of the book are the 3 discoveries to free your true self. The second half of the book are 10 disciplines to maximize your energy, your impact on the world, and your inner peace. And so these 10 disciplines, when implemented in your life, create a foundation for you to do the wonderful work to free your true self. They will maximize your impact on the outer world, and they will maximize your inner peace. And so with that, I'm going to now back into answering your question, but I always like to just give a high-level overview of the 10, like you touched on, just so everybody understands and connects the dots with what you said. But very quickly, discipline number 1 is 10-year thinking. Discipline number 2 is take time off. Number 3 is know thyself. Number 4 is be still. Number 5 is know your 100%. Number 6 is say no often. Number 7 is don't do $25 an hour work. Number 8 is prepare every night. Number 9 is put everything in one place. And number 10 is be humble. And so you're asking about discipline number 6, which is say no often. And the eat a worm point is when you have the first 5 disciplines embedded in your life, you'll know exactly what to say no to because your boundaries are so clear. Well, so why I said yes to this Well, it's actually a simple answer, because the first part of the answer is I don't know, because I have a very strong team that said yes. And there are probably 19 out of 20 that hear no. So congratulations, you're one of the 5% that got through. So
Thank
there
you.
was just something about you that resonated with the team. You made it through the filter. It has to do with the level of success of this podcast and a few other factors. And so the good news is with the level of deciding whether I'm going to do a podcast or not, I delegate that to my team to decide. And for this one, they said yes. And I just want you to know how often they say no, because I just can't do them all. And so that's why I said yes.
Well, I'm so happy that you did. It means, it means a lot to me. One of the ideas that actually came out of this is that everyone should be able to have their own almost say no list or checklist. I think you refer to it, what did you refer to it as? This idea of a say no list.
I don't think we call it a checklist. I can't remember the exact word in the book, but it's right there in the book under that discipline. But it basically will take you through 10 questions to see your fortitude at saying no. And some people score very low, some people score very high, but it's going to help you go right to the root of why you keep saying yes when you should say no, and build that muscle and that habit of being able to tell people no when you need to say no. And again, it's anything that doesn't fit in the first 5 disciplines when embedded in your life. These 10 disciplines will absolutely transform your life.
They really did. And you actually you and Rob talk about reading the book multiple times. It's clear that when you do that, different things resonate differently at different times, because you are at a different time in your life. So that one resonated with me. And let's bring it home with this idea of humility. EOS core value is this idea of humbly confident. And you define it so beautifully. View yourself as an equal to every person on the planet. And I wrote down, you don't have to prove yourself. This to me seemed to be the shining light that guides me forward, which is this idea of finding that stillness, that peace, and countering that awful ego. So this is the quote that I found for you, Gino. It says, ego is to the true self what a flashlight is to a spotlight.
I love it. It is so good.
And that is John Bradshaw.
Love it.
So Gino, we've come to the end of chapter 1. As I said to you, you come back 5 times. There's a smoking jacket with your name on it. You won't have to fight me for it. The book is called Shine: How Looking Inward is the Key to Unlocking True Entrepreneurial Freedom. I hope that you feel, if you've been watching this, that it's been like taking a little trip to the spa. Even though I've heard EOS sometimes can feel like going to the gym versus a spa, I feel at peace. You can follow Gino on X, and you can follow the 10 disciplines on Instagram, on LinkedIn as well. Gino, anything I didn't ask you, or anything you want to have the final word? The stage is yours. Actually, the second final word, because there's always someone that has the final word after my guest.
Yeah, the only thing I would suggest is just a reminder that please just go to the website, 10disciplines.com, and take the true self-assessment. There's nothing else. I feel like we've said it all. And so the best thing your audience can do is go to that website, take that assessment, get their score, find out how free their true self is. If they're ready to buy the book, they can buy the book right there on the website. If they want a free first chapter of the book, that's available for them. So just lots of resources to start this journey. And so just wanted to remind them of those resources. And I truly, Joseph, feel like we've said it all.
We have said it all. And so the last word always comes from someone who I don't know where he fits on the harmonic resonance, on the radiance scale, but I know that people fear him as opposed to him making decisions out of fear. But this is what Chuck Norris had to say about you, Gino.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.